Welcome back. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to Retail Horror Stories. Hit the like button and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is for you. That way, YouTube knows to keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. Every October, when the nights turn sharp and the corn around town starts to die off, folks in Melrose, Iowa, whisper about the Walmart just off Highway 92, the one surrounded by fields instead of freeways. Most people don't think much of it during the day. It's small, quiet, a little too empty. But if you talk to anyone who's worked there long enough, they'll tell you to never volunteer for the overnight shift on Halloween. My name's Tessa, and I was one of the newer employees back in 2016. I'd just started working at that Walmart as a night stalker to save money for college. It was an easy enough job, boring mostly. Stock shelves, face products, scan barcodes, and pretend you don't hear the occasional raccoon scraping at the back door. But that year, the manager, Rick, needed volunteers for the Halloween overnight shift. The store was staying open until 1 a.m. for last-minute costume buyers, and a skeleton crew would clean up afterward. It was me, Rick, an older janitor named Eddie, and two other stalkers, Maria and Devin. We clocked in just before sunset, joking about who'd eat the leftover Halloween candy first. By 11 p.m., the store was dead quiet. No customers. Just the faint buzz of the overhead lights and the sound of wind brushing against the automatic doors. Around midnight, something strange happened. The intercom system, the one we used for announcements, crackled to life. It made a soft popping sound, like static from an old radio, then silence. Rick frowned and tapped the receiver in the back room, thinking someone bumped it. But then we heard it again, the unmistakable sound of children laughing. Not cartoonish laughter, not like something piped in from a toy aisle. It sounded distant, muffled, almost like kids running through the store playing hide and seek. Probably some customers who got locked in, Rick said, but his voice didn't sound sure. We split up to check the aisles. I was assigned to groceries. Long, empty rows that smelled faintly of detergent and dust. My cart's wheels echoed off the linoleum as I turned each corner. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. Just the hum of refrigerators and my own heartbeat in my ears. When I got to the toy section, I noticed something off. Every single bike in the row was spinning its front wheel, slowly, like they'd just been pushed. And then, from the far end of the aisle came the sound of something scuttling fast across the tile. I turned, but no one was there. I radioed Rick. "You sure no one's still in here?" He didn't answer right away. Then came a burst of static, followed by him whispering, "Stay where you are." A few minutes later, he met me by the registers, pale as the Walmart floors. He said Eddie had gone to check the garden center doors, the ones that led to the cornfield, and they were wide open. The motion sensors showed movement outside, but no one on the cameras. Just rows of tall, dead stalks swaying under the floodlights. Rick locked the doors, muttering about pranksters, and went back to check the feed again. That's when all of us heard the laughter return, this time through the speakers above us. Louder, clearer. Multiple voices, giggling and whispering, overlapping until they almost formed words. Then one voice, a little girl, said, "Can we come back inside now?" I swear to God it came from the PA system. Maria dropped her box cutter. Devin started cursing under his breath. Eddie, standing by the entrance, looked ready to walk home through the corn if it meant getting out. Rick grabbed the intercom mic and shouted, "Who's doing that?" The laughter stopped. For a long moment, the store was dead silent. Then every fluorescent light flickered all at once. When they came back on, one of the Halloween displays near the front, the one with animatronic scarecrows, had toppled over. Only one of the scarecrows was missing. The next hour was chaos. We tried to call corporate, but the phones had gone dead. Even our personal cell service dropped to 0 bars. Rick finally told us to just finish what we could and stay together. We started closing out the registers when the sliding doors at the front opened by themselves. The motion sensors chimed, that familiar ding, and cold air swept in from the field. Standing just outside the door was a shape, short, small, wearing something white. For a moment, it looked like a child in a dress, but when she stepped under the flickering light, her face was blank, not gone, just flat, like something pressed into wet clay. Eddie yelled, "Hey!" and started toward her, but the automatic doors slammed shut before he got there. The girl, or whatever it was, tilted her head, and I swear I saw her lips move behind the smooth skin. When the doors opened again, she was gone. The next morning, Rick called corporate anyway and filed a maintenance report for intercom interference and door malfunction. But when the tech came in to check the system, he found something none of us expected. The intercom wasn't malfunctioning, it was unplugged. The wires had been ripped out behind the receiver, like someone had physically yanked them loose. And on the wall behind it, in tiny, dusty handprints, were smudges leading downward, like a child had been standing there, reaching up. Rick quit 2 weeks later. Maria transferred to another store. Devin stopped answering our group texts altogether. As for me, I stayed, but I never volunteered for Halloween again. They say if you drive past that Walmart after midnight, you can still see the cornfield rustling, even when the wind's not blowing. And sometimes, just for a second, you'll hear laughter over the parking lot speakers. The same static giggle that plays every October 31st at exactly 12:13 a.m. And if you ever find yourself shopping there late at night, do yourself a favor. When the lights flicker and the intercom crackles, don't look toward the toy aisle, because some of the kids in that store never left the cornfield. In every town, there's always that one store people talk about after dark. The one that seems to have lights on long after closing, or shadows that move behind locked doors. In Scranton, Pennsylvania, that store is a Lowe's. Locals call it the Lowe's that never closes. When I first heard the nickname, I thought it was just a running joke. I was 24, new to the night inventory team, and not the kind of guy who believed in ghosts. That changed on Halloween night, 2019. We were scheduled to close early that evening because the alarm company needed to test the power at midnight. The plan was simple: clean up, shut down, wait for the electrician, and head home before midnight. It was me, Heather from appliances, Luis from paint, and Tom, our security guard. At 10:45 p.m., the last customer walked out with a cart full of clearance decorations. We locked the sliding doors, turned off the lights, and started making our rounds. The store felt hollow, those wide, echoing aisles lit only by blue exit signs. Then we heard it, a long, low dragging sound from the back of the building. It didn't sound like machinery or boxes. It sounded like someone pulling lumber across the concrete floor. Heather gave me a look. "You sure everyone's out?" "Alarm's armed," Tom said. "No one's inside." The sound came again, longer this time, Drag, scrape, drag. It was coming from the lumber aisle. We followed it, flashlights slicing through the dark. As we entered lumber, the air grew colder, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. One of the big racks of 2x4s was halfway emptied, wood pieces sticking out like ribs, as if someone had been pulling them one by one. Luis whispered, "Who's in here?" A motion sensor light flicked on at the far end of the aisle. Under its pale white glow stood a man, tall, slouched, wearing an old brown jacket covered in sawdust. "Sir, store's closed," I called out. He didn't move. He just stood there, his head tilted slightly forward, like he was listening. Tom lifted his radio. "Hey, whoever you are, you need to..." The lights flickered, and the man was gone. We searched everywhere, behind pallets, through the loading bay, even in the restrooms. Nothing. Every door was still locked from the inside, alarm lights green and solid. We regrouped by the service desk. Heather glanced at the big wall clock and frowned. "Why's it stuck at 11:03? We checked our watches. Same thing. 11:03. Even the registers had frozen on that time. It was like the entire building stopped. Tom tried calling the alarm company, but the line was dead. My phone had no signal either. That's when the intercom system, which shouldn't have been working at all, hissed to life. Static filled the air, followed by a low, rasping voice. "Cut! The boards!" We all froze. Luis whispered, "That wasn't Rick, was it?" referring to our manager. The voice came again, louder, slower this time. "Cut. The boards." Then came a crash. We sprinted back to lumber. The trail of 2x4s we'd seen earlier was scattered across the floor now, leading toward the back wall. The saw, the large one customers used to cut wood, was running. The key had been removed hours ago, but the blade spun lazily, whining in the quiet. Etched in the sawdust beneath it were words, traced by a finger. "I never clocked out." Heather screamed. Luis backed away. Tom tried the radio again, but it just hissed static. The metal safety gate slammed shut behind us with a deafening clang. We turned and saw a shadow pacing slowly behind the gate. A tall figure moving back and forth, dragging something heavy across the ground. The motion sensor blinked red each time it passed. "Open it," Heather shouted. "Tom, open the damn gate." He grabbed the latch, but it was locked tight. My flashlight caught movement between the slats. A pale face watching us through the bars. Eyes clouded white. Skin the color of sawdust. Its lips didn't move, but a whisper filled the air around us anyway. "Cut the boards." Then, every light in the building popped, one after another, like firecrackers. Glass rained down, the blade of the saw screeched to a stop, and the world went dark. When I opened my eyes, it was daylight. We were lying on the floor of the break room. The electrician stood over us, looking confused. The power was fine. The clocks were normal. The alarm system had never tripped, but the lumber gate was wide open, and a single set of boot prints led from the aisle to the loading dock and stopped at the door. They checked the footage. Every camera froze at 11:03 p.m. Then the feed jumped straight to sunrise. Luis quit that week. Heather transferred to another store. Tom swore he'd seen someone standing by the saw when the lights came back on, though the cameras showed nothing. I stayed, maybe out of stubbornness. Maybe because I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever that man was, he wasn't finished. Now, every Halloween, the same things happen again. Sawdust scattered on the floor, motion sensors tripping for no reason, and that same voice over the intercom just before midnight. Cut the boards? Management says it's faulty wiring. But if you ever walk past the lumber aisle after closing, don't look toward the back wall. Because if you do, you might see him still standing there, waiting to clock out. And that's why everyone in town still calls it the Lowe's that never closes. Most people laugh when you tell them Spirit Halloween stores are haunted. Of course they are, they say. They appear out of nowhere and vanish a month later. But the one in Clearwater, Florida, the one that took over the old Harrington's department store, was different. That one didn't vanish. I was working there in 2021, my first Halloween season. The job was simple: stock shelves, check animatronics, help parents find costumes. I didn't care much for the paranormal rumors. Everyone said Harrington's had burned down years ago, that a security guard died in the fire, and that every store Spirit moved into afterward had some kind of incident. I thought it was corporate folklore, until the night I closed alone. It was mid-October, maybe 10:15 p.m. I'd just finished straightening the masks aisle when the power flickered. Not a full outage, just a pulse through the store's fluorescent lights, like the building took a deep breath. When they steadied again, one of the animatronics, a 6-foot Reaper near the register, was activated. The problem? The display cords were unplugged for the night. The Reaper's motion sensor light glowed red, and its recorded voice rasped, "Welcome, back." I froze. Back? The store was empty. I turned off the display switchboard, just in case, but the Reaper didn't stop. It twitched once, twice, and then went still. I clocked out 15 minutes later, more annoyed than scared. But when I locked the front doors, I saw something through the glass that made my stomach flip. The Reaper's glowing red eyes were reflecting in the window. From where I stood, they shouldn't have been visible at all. It was facing the opposite direction. I told my manager, Cara, about it the next morning. She just laughed and said, "If it moves again, tell it to help stock shelves." That became her running joke all week, until she saw it herself. 2 days later, Cara stayed late for inventory. She was the only one in the building when the store's alarm system tripped. When the security team checked the cameras, they saw her sprinting out the front door. She told us later that she'd heard voices coming from the old stockroom. Children's voices, laughing and whispering. That part of the building had been sealed off when Spirit took over. Harrington's had burned from the inside, and the fire started back there. The walls were blackened and unstable, so Spirit just walled it off. No one went in. But on the footage, the door to that burned section was open. Cara tried to shrug it off, but the next few nights got worse. Decorations activated on their own. Animatronics powered up despite having no batteries. We'd walk in to find the fog machines running, even though they'd been unplugged the night before. And every single night around closing, the music system played the same song. An old jazz tune that wasn't on the playlist. I remember the lyrics because they were oddly cheerful. "We'll meet again, my friend, when the lights go out." The maintenance guy blamed faulty wiring, but one night he didn't show up at all. His van was found in the parking lot the next morning, keys still in the ignition, doors open, engine cold. Halloween night was our last shift of the season. After that, Spirit would pack up and the building would sit empty again until next year. Cara insisted we close early, 9 p.m. sharp. By 8:45, the place was dead quiet. Only me, Cara, and another coworker, Ben, were still there, taking down the hanging displays. We were almost done when the overhead lights cut out completely. Not flickering, full blackness. Ben swore under his breath. Breaker blew again. He started toward the back, flashlight in hand. Kara and I waited near the registers. The store was silent, except for the faint creak of costume racks swaying. Then, from somewhere in the dark, came the sound of running footsteps. Small ones, like children playing tag. "Ben?" Kara called out. No answer. Her flashlight beam shook as she pointed toward the entrance of the burned hallway, the one that was supposed to be sealed. The plywood barrier was gone. Smoke drifted from the doorway. Not heavy, just wisps curling through the air, carrying the faint smell of charred fabric and something sweet. Melted plastic, maybe. Then we heard laughter. It was soft at first, echoing from the hallway. Then another voice joined in, and another, until the air was filled with it. A chorus of giggles and whispers circling us, bouncing between racks of costumes and walls. Something brushed my shoulder. I turned my flashlight expecting to see Ben, but there was no one there. Just a child's mannequin wearing a burned clown mask, its head turned toward me. That's when the intercom crackled. Static, then a voice, low, hoarse, but distinct. "We're open. Again." The animatronics all activated at once. Reapers, skeletons, witches. Their lights blazed, their voices screamed in unison. The fog machine roared to life, filling the store in seconds. Through the haze, I saw Ben stumble from the hallway, coughing, covered in black soot. His hands were burned. He looked right at us and said, "They're still in there." We ran outside, pulling him with us. The fire alarm blared, lights flashing red across the parking lot. But when firefighters arrived, there was no smoke, no fire, no heat, nothing. The burned section in the back, still sealed, untouched. They treated Ben for mild burns, but he couldn't explain how he got them. He quit the next day. Kara left the company entirely. When Spirit came to take the store down the following week, I drove by out of curiosity. The lot was empty except for one thing, the neon Spirit Halloween sign still faintly glowing through the boarded windows, even though the power had been cut. The building's been vacant ever since. Locals say every October it lights up again for a few nights. The neon sign flickers, the Reaper turns to face the door, and the same jazz tune plays faintly through the dark. We'll meet again, my friend, when the lights go out. And somehow, every year, Spirit still marks that address as active location, even though the store burned down 25 years ago. Everyone in Dayton, Ohio knows about the Target on Ridgeway Drive. It's not cursed exactly. People still shop there. Kids still grab Starbucks. Cashiers still smile. But if you ask any employee who's worked a Halloween shift there, they'll all tell you the same thing. They've seen the woman in red. I didn't believe it at first. I was 17 when I started, just saving for a car. I worked evenings in the seasonal department, which meant unpacking boxes of costumes and decorations that came in half-assembled. Every year, around October, the whole back half of the store turned orange and black. Plastic pumpkins, fog machines, motion sensor skeletons. It was fun until I worked my first closing shift. That night, it was just me, Rosa, the team lead, and Caleb, who handled stock. We stayed after hours to reset shelves before the holiday sale. It was nearly midnight when the overhead music shut off mid-song. Normally it loops 24/7, so Rosa went to the front to check the control tablet. Then I saw her. At first, I thought it was just a customer we missed, a woman standing halfway down the Halloween aisle wearing a faded red cardigan. She was facing the shelves, not moving. Her hair was dark and messy, her shoes muddy like she'd come in from the rain. "Ma'am," I called, "we're closed." No answer. I started walking toward her, but the closer I got, the stranger it felt. The air around her was cold, not just cool, but freezer cold, like stepping into a meat locker. I blinked once and she was gone. I thought maybe she'd ducked into another aisle, but when I turned the corner, no one was there. Just a red smear on the white tile, shaped like the heel of a shoe. Rosa came back a few minutes later, irritated. "Music system's fried again. You good?" I didn't say anything. I didn't want to sound crazy. The next morning, I told Caleb. He laughed and said, "Congrats, you met her." Everyone does eventually. I thought he was joking, until he showed me the security footage from the night before. Around 11:47 p.m., there I was, walking down the Halloween aisle, talking to someone who wasn't there. But in the reflection of a small mirror display beside me, you could see her. A woman in red, standing completely still, watching. Her face wasn't clear, just pale, with dark smudges where her eyes should have been. That's when I started asking questions. Turns out, the store was built over the old Ridgeway Shopping Center. In 2003, a fire started in a clothing boutique and spread through 3 connected stores. 2 employees died, one of them a woman who reportedly ran back inside for her purse. Her name was Laura Keene, and she'd been wearing a red sweater when they found her. Target tore the ruins down and built over the ashes a few years later. No one mentioned the history and orientation. Over the next few weeks, small things kept happening. A price scanner would beep on its own. Displays would reset themselves overnight. One night, Rosa found every mannequin in the apparel section turned to face the same direction, all toward the Halloween aisle. But Halloween night was when it went too far. The store closed early, 9 p.m. The 3 of us stayed to finish cleanup. The power flickered around 9:45, just once, then again at 10 o'clock. We were used to it. The lights there always buzzed. But then the intercom clicked on, not the normal chime, just static, and then a voice, faint, female, whispering, "Don't close the doors." Rosa looked up from her clipboard. Who said that? No one answered. Then all the scanners in the checkout lanes started beeping at once. I'm not exaggerating, all 10, rapid and overlapping, like someone was running items through invisible hands. Caleb sprinted to the front to shut the power breakers off. He didn't make it that far. From the Halloween aisle came a scream, high-pitched, sharp, and human. We bolted toward it. When we turned the corner, the air was cold again. Every hanging costume swayed slowly, as if someone had just brushed past them. At the end of the aisle stood the woman in red, her head tilted down, facing away. "Ma'am, you can't be here," Rosa said, her voice shaking. The woman didn't move. Then she raised her hand, slow, deliberate, and pointed toward the security mirrors above us. When I looked up, my reflection wasn't mine. In the mirror, I was wearing the red cardigan. The lights flickered again, and she vanished. We didn't say a word after that. We clocked out, left everything on the floor, and waited in the parking lot until morning. The manager brushed it off as Halloween stress. But when they reviewed the security footage, the cameras in the Halloween aisle were completely blank from 9:44 to 10:02, just static. A week later, I quit. I couldn't handle being in that building after dark. Rosa transferred to a different Target across town. Caleb stayed, said he didn't believe any of it, even though he stopped working night shifts. That Target's still open, still busy. But every October, right before Halloween, customers complain about cold spots near the seasonal section. Employees find footprints that lead nowhere, and when the lights flicker, sometimes the mirrors flash red for a split second, even though the walls are white. The new hires laugh about the woman in red, but the old employees don't. They know what happens when you see her reflection. You start dreaming about her. And if you see her in the aisles, not in the mirror, but standing in front of you, that means she's finally ready for someone else to take her place. So, if you ever shop at the Target on Ridgeway Drive this Halloween, don't linger too long in the seasonal aisle. And if you feel the air suddenly turn cold behind you, don't turn around. Most haunted places make sense. Old hospitals, forgotten schools, abandoned houses. But nobody ever talks about break rooms. Maybe that's why what happened at the Home Depot in Austin, Texas, still bothers me. Because the break room was supposed to be safe, the one place in that whole echoing warehouse where the lights were warm and the air didn't smell like wood dust and paint thinner. My name's Eli, and I worked there from 2018 to 2022. Halloween shifts were always slow, mostly late-night inventory, and the occasional DIer trying to buy fog machine parts. We joked about the haunted lumber aisle and the forklift that moved on its own, but no one ever really believed it. That changed the year we stayed overnight for the remodel. It was the week of Halloween 2020. Corporate had ordered a full-floor reset. We had to swap out aisles, restock seasonal displays, and update end caps, all after hours. That meant we clocked in at 10 p.m. and stayed until sunrise. It was me, Sharon, the department lead, Victor from receiving, and Jamie, one of the new hires. At first, it was just normal overnight work. We joked, listened to music, tried to keep the coffee flowing. Around midnight, Jamie wandered off to grab boxes from the back room. 10 minutes later, she came running back, pale as the drywall samples. "There's someone in the break room," she said. We all froze. The store was locked tight, alarms set, gates down. Victor and I exchanged looks. "You sure it wasn't a mirror or something?" Sharon asked. Jamie shook her head. He was sitting at the table, wearing an orange vest. We followed her to the break room. The lights were off, but the vending machine glowed softly against the wall. The air felt thick, heavy. Nothing looked out of place, except for one chair pulled away from the table. Sharon sighed. "Probably just saw your reflection." We laughed it off and went back to work. But around 2 a.m., we all started noticing weird things. The motion sensors near the lumber aisle kept triggering, even though no one was there. Power tools turned on for half a second before shutting off. And every clock in the building, including the digital one above the break room door, froze at 3:03 a.m. That's when the intercom crackled. Normally, it only played pre-recorded messages, but a voice came through. A man's voice. "All associates, return to break." It wasn't anyone we recognized. Sharon grabbed her radio. "Who's on the mic?" Static. The voice repeated, slower this time. "Return to break." We walked toward the break room, partly because we didn't know what else to do. The closer we got, the colder the air became, that damp chill that sinks into your bones. The lights inside flickered. The microwave display glitched between the time, and something that looked like words. I leaned closer, and it flashed again. "Still here." Jamie gasped. "Did you see that?" Victor stepped forward, grabbing the door handle. "It's just a short," he said. The door swung open by itself. The smell hit us first, not dust, not coffee, but something like burnt metal and engine oil. Inside, the lights buzzed dimly. Someone had written across the whiteboard in thick black marker, "Don't stay past 3." None of us had written that. The TV mounted in the corner clicked on. No input, just static. Then, through the fuzz, a voice, distorted, deep, almost mechanical, whispered, "Clock out." Sharon killed the power to the room, slamming the switch. We left everything and went back to the sales floor, shaken but trying to stay rational. Maybe someone was pranking us. Maybe an old radio was bleeding into the system. Anything but what it sounded like. We stuck together after that, working quietly. Around 4:15, Victor realized the time clocks weren't syncing. Every punch-out showed 3:03 a.m., the exact time everything froze earlier. Jamie refused to go near the break room again, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That message on the whiteboard, the voice saying, "Clock out." Around 5 o'clock, I decided to check the security cameras. Sharon followed me to the manager's office where the monitors were. The feed for the break room was still running, even though the lights were off. At first, it looked empty. Then the image flickered. Once, twice, and a figure appeared sitting at the break table. He wore an orange vest. His head was bent forward like he'd fallen asleep, but his chest wasn't moving. We zoomed in. The tag on his vest read, R. Crawford. That name hit Sharon like a punch. "Randy Crawford," she said quietly. "He worked here years ago. Died of a heart attack. Right there in that break room." Before I could react, the monitor flashed white, and for a split second the figure looked straight at the camera. His eyes black, mouth open like he was screaming. Then the feed went black. The office lights flickered, and the printer behind us kicked on by itself. A single sheet of paper slid out. No header, no formatting. Just 2 words typed in the center. "Clock out." We left everything running, grabbed our bags, and waited in the parking lot until the sun came up. When the day crew arrived, the store was perfectly normal. Clocks running fine, power stable, no sign of the messages or the footage. Corporate never believed us. They said the video file was corrupted. The printer glitch was from a pending job. But they couldn't explain the coffee mugs that were still warm in the break room when no one had been inside since we left. 2 months later, I transferred stores. Sharon retired early. Victor quit after he claimed to hear someone whisper his name over the forklift radio during another night shift. Jamie texted me last Halloween. She said the new employees talk about it too. How sometimes the TV in the break room turns itself on around 3 a.m., and the clock freezes for exactly 60 seconds. Then the PA system clicks, and the same voice says, "All associates, return to break." If you ever work nights at a Home Depot, check the clock when it hits 3:03. If it stops, even for a second, don't go to the break room. Because whatever's waiting in there still thinks you're on the clock,